tuning in. Hello, welcome. We are talking tonight about why guided reading is so hard. You are here with Reading Simplified, and we're talking about why guided reading is so hard and what you can do about it, at least one part of the solution. So we'll be talking about something that may be a little surprising to you, particularly if you've done kind of classic guided reading. So I'll be really interested to hear what you think. But before we start talking about the solutions, I'd really like to hear from you guys. So how do you feel about guided reading? Go ahead and comment in the comments below, and we can share what we have found about doing guided reading. Now, I have observed that it's very tricky in a lot of classrooms, particularly in the U.S. That's where most of my experience is. But I am not alone in that. I think I sparked something that I wasn't even aware might happen. Recently, just a couple days ago, we put out a Facebook post just asking this question: how do you feel about guided reading? And it was almost universally negative. Even people, when they thought that there was potential and they were optimistic and they loved it, they still said, oh, it's hard. Hi, Janie. I'm glad you're here from Canada. I'm so glad you're the first one. So let's see what this blog post prompted from you guys, okay? Let me see if I can pull it up. There we go. So this was the post. How do you feel about planning for guided reading? And I'm offering, for those folks who were in the original post, to give a month of free lesson plan. I can show you how to get that tonight as well. Just stay tuned for that. Let me see if I can roll up. So let's see what some of the comments were. I was surprised by how many comments we got, and how many were so negative. Roxanne says, I become overwhelmed. So many varying levels and individual needs. Angie said, also, it can be very overwhelming. Sandra, I work with struggling students, so every plan needs to be different, which can be challenging. Yes. Sue, it is really effective, so she's really positive, but as many has stated, it's hard to plan for so many levels. Do you guys find that to be the case, that planning for all the levels is too much? Allison says she agrees that finding suitable text to meet the needs is a challenge. Christy says she struggles with goal setting, so which group needs to be doing what at what time? I agree, that can be tricky with the way we often present reading instruction. What else do we have here? Rebecca says there's always such a huge span of ability levels that I feel like I do not do any justice. I need the amount of time I have to work with each group. So these are some of the common threads throughout this thread. We see people saying it's overwhelming. We see people say it's effective, but it's a lot of work. It's particularly hard to deal with all the levels. Look at what Sedona says, 2 words, time consuming. And Michelle's open for new ideas. So that's kind of what I want to bring to you tonight. One partial solution to the problem with it being so overwhelming. So look at how many different folks had something to say about this. This, for my Facebook page, which has been around for about 2 years-ish, this is a lot of activity. So this is something that I think you guys feel a lot of passion about. You believe in it, you know it's going to be good, but yet it's just often too hard, right? How many of you find that? So if you're just popping in, I want to know, how do you feel about guided reading? Okay. Also, tell us where you're from. So let's see. We already heard from. I'll move this over here. And Janie said she was from Canada, so I'm glad she's here. And we also have Diane from Fort Worth. I'm originally from Texas back in the day. And Deb is popping in. Welcome, Deb. And she says that she can't fit everything in: word work, book discussion, running record, recording data. Absolutely. How many of you find that to be challenging too? Robbie's popping in from British Columbia, Canada. Welcome, welcome. So if you're just popping in, let us know, how do you feel about guided reading? We're going to be talking about why it's complex. Why are we feeling so overwhelmed? And also one partial solution. So let us know how you feel about it. What we heard from our teachers in the post that I put out 2 days ago was that it's overwhelming. There's too many levels. It's a tremendous amount of work, etc., etc. So why is it so hard? Well, one of the things that I believe that makes guided reading so hard is that we pile on, we meaning just our culture, our standards, our reading series, our state standards, our nation standards, our district, our school standards, the guidelines. We pile on more than can be accomplished by anyone in any school year. So that's why it's overwhelming. Do we need, when we're in the second month of kindergarten, do we need to worry about punctuation? Do we need to worry about letter sound knowledge? Do we need to worry about phonemic awareness? Do we need to worry about sight words? Do we need to worry about handwriting? Do we need to worry about, yes, we have to worry about all of that, but which is really important and at which juncture? That's where I think that we get confused, because there's a never ending, it seems, dump on us of demands, particularly in literacy. Obviously, teaching is hard in general today. I bet many of you believe that, and are experiencing it. But I think particularly in literacy, it is just too much. And so there's too much, and then there's lack of clarity about which things are core and which are ancillary or secondary. So if we don't understand the priority that we need to place, for instance, on sound symbol decoding and how that really is the foundation for every literacy skill that's built upon it, then we could be worrying too much about punctuation or about teaching pronouns and nouns or teaching sophisticated comprehension strategies and missing that foundation and putting our energy there. And so we're just kind of acting in an inefficient manner. So that's kind of my big idea on why it's so hard. There's too much expected on us, and there's a lack of a clarity of how reading develops and what is core and what is secondary. I want to try to clear some of that up tonight, but this will only be a partial solution. So let's see what the rest of you guys say. Janie, she says, if I can pull it up. There, Janie, she says she loves it. Awesome. Thank you, Janie. We'll hopefully get into the answers and the ideas that you are expecting tonight. So Diane says that she loses students' attention while trying to help all the different levels. Right, exactly. So you've got, especially if you're even in a guided reading setting, you might have 3 that are here and 2 that are here, or you're doing guided reading and you've got the whole class that's working independently. Those things make it hard, Diane. I know that is so true. And it's not just the classroom teachers, right? Katie here is saying that she's homeschools her son, and then she's also overwhelmed by the planning. So she's probably also inundated with all these ideas in the homeschooling community. And so what is primary, what is secondary, tertiary, and what may need to be completely thrown out for the kindergarten year? That's all very real. If you're just tuning in, let us know, how do you feel about guide reading? We're discussing it tonight because it kind of created a recent post that we did on this Facebook page here at Reading Simplified, kind of created a firestorm. I've gotten more comments than I've ever seen before just by asking, how do you feel about guided reading? And all the outpouring is that it's almost entirely negative. Not that it's not effective, but that the burden on the teacher is just overwhelming. There's too much, there's not enough time, too many levels, and how do we cope with that? And Diane is popping in. Welcome. She is in Hillsborough, North Carolina. Thanks for being here, Diane. And she's tutoring. So I was saying one explanation for why it's so hard. And now I want to get to one part of the solution. Now, this is just one little sliver of an answer because we're just here for a few minutes tonight here on this weekly session. But I think it can be a very powerful thing to consider. So a lot of what happens in the guided reading time is not the essence of what needs to happen for kids at a certain stage developmentally. So until they become really competent with the foundation of sound symbol decoding, in other words, they can perceive sounds and match them up to symbols, and they have a phonetic or a phonemic decoding approach that's very strong, until they've got that secure foundation, all the other things that are going to be higher literacy skills are, to some extent, not entirely, but to some extent, a moot point. And this is where the overwhelm comes in. We see kids who might not be making an inference with the text that we're working on. But if that student is a second grade student who cannot read Henry and Mudge yet, our priority is actually not at that moment on inferencing with them in the guided reading context. So that's one way I suggest that you can save time and not feel so overburdened, that when you're in the guided reading context, really focus kind of relentlessly on getting the foundation of sound symbol processing strong, and choosing activities that will do that for you, and putting the other activities that aren't about building that foundation into other activities. So for instance, the inferencing thing is absolutely a wonderful thing to do, but it's much better time spent in interactive read alouds or in literature circles, something outside of the guided reading context, when at that stage for development, if a kid's not reading above grade level and not fluent, they really need to work on learning how to recognize the words. So this is kind of counterintuitive to a lot of mainstream, because even in kindergarten, even in first grade, we're told that we need to teach decoding, we need to teach sight words, we need to teach fluency, we also need to teach higher level comprehension skills, all in guided reading. And it's all jam-packed in there, and there's no way we can get it all done in 20 minutes with 5 different kids and all these different levels, and this one can do inferencing, and this one can't decode, and this one doesn't have phonemic awareness, because we've just gotten too many demands on us. Now when those kids are stronger at decoding, and they're starting to recognize words more automatically, then other higher level skills can become part of our regular diet in a guided reading session. Now, I'm not saying that you don't attend to comprehension at all. I'm just saying put most of your energy towards decoding activities. And I'm going to tell you a little secret about that. Not just in word work, but also in the text that you read. And that's my main suggestion, my main tip for tonight. Like I said, it's just a partial solution. But if you want to build the foundation when kids are needing, when they're needing a strong sound symbol processing base, one way to do it is to make sure your word work instruction aligns closely with the text that you choose. So a lot of times what happens in guided reading is we do activities like word work, and we manipulate letters, maybe working on the short O or short I sound, and then we pick up a leveled reader, and the student doesn't have any exposure or very little exposure in that leveled reader to the short O and the short I that we just practiced. So it's a lack of transfer from the word work opportunity into the guided reading time that's a super inefficiency of our situation. And the reason it's complicated as to why that's come about, but one of the reasons it's come about is that kind of anxiety about teaching with mostly or partially decodable books for too long. But you can do it in a pretty efficient way. Reading simplified techniques that we teach often get kids to be able to get out of those partially or mostly decodable books in 12 weeks. Maybe kids who are slower or younger, maybe 24, maybe 36, but it doesn't have to be 2 or 3 years that they're dwelling in those types of books. We can quickly get them out of that if we build the foundation first. So hang with me here. I'm going to get it. Lisa is back. I haven't seen Lisa in a while. Welcome. After all year of you have to do it this way, they're finally going to let us do it our way. Oh, you'll have to tell me more about that, Lisa. I'm not sure I understand everything. That is really neat. If you're getting to get back to the reading simplified activities. Okay, so are you following me here? This may be complicated if you haven't thought about this kind of thing before. Let me give you some examples. Okay, so this is an example of what I think is an inefficiency that gives us too much to do, because This is from a very well-known guided reading approach. So the teacher was told to do like reading words like ran, hop, not, fin, top, log, jog. Okay, so those are 3 sound words with the short O and the short I. That's good word work. Okay, no problem there. Then they were doing word building. So they built the word mop, they built the word hop, they built the word stop, and they built the word sit. So they were doing some word work that was focused on short O, short I mostly. And they did almost all 3 sound words and 1 4 sound word. Okay, so what is going to make that word work experience pay off for those students when they're reading? What type of text will take that word work practice and put it into play in real reading? And if you choose a certain type of text, a lot won't happen. They won't transfer those skills. So the next day, you're back at square one and you're doing short O again and short I again. And you may do it for weeks and you may feel overburdened because you're not progressing with those kids. And the reason that this is a challenge is that text selection, which I'll talk about in a second, isn't aligned with the word work. So we don't have to align it with the word work forever, and we don't even have to align it for the word work for the entire session, but some of it needs to be aligned. So let me give you the example of what this recommended lesson was. After they did those words for word work, this is the text they read. Fun at school, okay? This was just me listening, so I don't have the text perfectly, but this is generally the text from this book that they were reading right after doing that word work. We are reading books at school. We write stories at school. We are painting at school. We play games at school. We play puppets at school. We make friends at school. So there's a pattern to that text, and the kids they were fairly successful with the teacher's support in attacking those words. But did they have any practice of the 3 sound short vowel words? None. Literally not one word in the text was practicing what they had done in word work. And so there's that disconnect or mismatch that is creating this incredible inefficiency with their ability to take what they're doing in isolation and plopping it down into the complexity of reading text, because reading text is very complex. And so they can do that with the teacher's support in guided reading. It's very challenging, but it can happen. So if you're just joining us, we're talking about how teachers, whether they're in the classroom or homeschooling or tutoring, how they feel about guided reading. And I'm talking about just one way in which I think it can be traditionally very challenging. So if you have some thoughts on what I've said, yay or nay, I would love to hear them. We can have a dialogue. Let me know what you think. Does this make sense that if you don't align the word work with the texts selection, that there will be a lot of inefficiency, and then you will be slogging through word work for a long time. You won't see the progression. The text levels won't increase. So let me show you an example of what I recommend in contrast. Okay, so let me pull that up if I can. Oh, it worked. Aha. So this is an example. Say if your students are working in word work on the long O sound. So this is the sorted page. Many of you have seen this before, but if you haven't, the idea is that for about a week, students will, in a guided reading group, will focus on the O sound and all of its spellings and sort them by columns. The O for go, the O for home, the O for show, the O for boat, the O for Joe. And they also use this key sentence, go home to show, the boat to Joe. They use that all week to kind of be a mnemonic or a mental hook on which to remember those key spellings. So say they're doing that for word work. What would be a good text for them to be able to transfer that learning into real reading? Would they read something like, we are reading books at school, we wrote stories at school, we are painting at school, we play games at school? No, because that obviously doesn't have any O sound words in it. But if they are learning these sounds in word work, and then they go to, say, a passage like this, then they'll more likely see the transfer, and we'll move on. And the next week we'll be able to cover the E sound and all its spellings. And the week after that we'll be able to cover the A sound and all its spellings. For instance, this says a snow day with mom. So count with me how many O sound words you hear, okay? So I'd love to see if somebody gets it. I might miss something, okay? Especially when I'm on TV. It's harder. Help me out. Put it in the comments how many O sound words. I'm talking about the sound O, not the letter O. And include the title, A Snow Day with Mom. Mom shows me the snow. Yes, I can have fun in the snow. I can sled in the snow. My sled can go fast. The wind blows. I have my thick coat, but I still get cold. I go home. I sip hot cocoa. Thanks, Mom. So how many did you get? Notice that there's not just one spelling for O either. It really taxes the student's brain. They're going to try to memorize all of them, all of those spellings. Joanne got 11. All right. Who else is going to participate, you guys? Thank you, Joanne. Katie's got 11 too. Now, did you count Coco as 2? Katie? Okay, Katie, you changed your answer. Anybody else? Okay, Lisa's got 12. I got 13, but like I said, I'm not necessarily claiming to be right because I just did this right now in front of you. Deborah Ann, you got 13. So I counted Coco as 2, right? Notice the O and Coco. And don't forget the word go and cold. You might have not noticed those. Lorraine, thank you. A lot of people are participating. That's great. So when a student is doing, in guided reading, is doing this passage, or rather these types of activities like Sort It, this is the only one, but something like that where they're really focused on one sound and all of its spellings, and then they go and read text that practice that, then they're much more likely to see the transfer. The other thing that along these lines that I'm going to recommend is that when you do guided reading, the most important thing you could possibly do for those kids who are still developing their sound symbol processing ability, the most important thing is to give them practice reading new text and also rereading old text. But when they practice that new text, they should be challenged, and then you should help guide them through that. So I'm going to show you a little video right now that's an example. I'm showing myself because I don't have a lot of videos of other teachers, since you have to get permission and all those steps. But you know, a lot of you I know are doing this kind of good practice out there. I'm not saying this is the only thing. Oh, of course, Joanne, you said you counted Coco as 1. And yeah, absolutely. If I had said words or spellings, yeah, it doesn't really matter. It's not that important as long as you can see how much is jam-packed into that passage. That's a lot of opportunities to practice multiple spellings. So I'm going to show you this sort of guided reading opportunity. These kids, they're not actually my students. I was just doing this for the video opportunity, but we did an activity. We did actually sort it. And then I had them read this passage. And notice when they're reading that they're doing the hard work, and when they need help, I coach them through that. And then after the little video, they would have reread it a couple different times. First, I would have modeled it to them, and then they would have read it 2 or 3 times because it's short enough. So the O in snow and the O in go and coat, that's starting to get stuck in their brain. The next day, they'll come and read A Snow Day with Mom, and that'll be easy peasy, and we'll do another O sound text. So that's one way that it reduces my burden as a teacher to know that the word work I'm doing is also targeted in the reading instruction. So, and during the reading instruction of the text, they're not only learning the sounds, these specific spellings like the OW and the OA, but they're also learning high frequency words like a snow and go and cold. So let's look and see if the video will work for first graders who are not having an easy time with their reading. Let's see if we can see how they're working, how they're practicing their transfer, and how they're getting plenty of eyes on print time instead of not getting the coaching that sometimes happens in certain guided reading situations. This is not the only way to do it, but this is just one demo. So let's see what you think. Look at your picture. What do you see? What kind of
snow day with Mom?
Oh, she's already read the title. Everybody point to the title.
A snow day with Mom.
What kind of day? What kind of day?
I said snow.
You nailed it. Okay.
Mom.
Oh wait, I need to see the pointing. I need to see the pointing. Point to the first line, please.
Mom shows me the snow.
Okay, we're going to take turns. Now it's your turn. Yeah, point though.
I can have fun in the snow.
Very good.
I can sled in the snow.
Okay, your turn.
Mom. Soup.
Listen. Sled. My sled
Can go fast.
Nicely done. Your turn.
The wind blows.
Uh-huh.
I have my thick
Good work.
clothes.
I have my thick coat.
But I still get cold.
Mm-hmm. And it's your turn.
I go home. I sleep.
Nope, not quite. Let's check the first two sounds.
I slip. Slip.
Okay, you're adding a o. There's no o. Let's just do the first two sounds. No o. Uh-huh, put them together. Sip. Yes.
Sip.
I sipped. Do you know what it means to sip?
Hot chocolate.
Good guess. We'll work on that next. This is me sipping. Watch. Is that a sip? I take a sip.
You should take all of them out.
Okay, so nope, we're gonna read our story, okay? I sip. Now let's do that last word. That's a challenging word. It's got two chunks. The first chunk is I sip hot
Cocoa.
I sip hot cocoa. Who likes hot cocoa?
Me.
What is hot cocoa? Oh, okay, you know what it is. Okay, whose turn is it? Okay, what's that one? And your turn.
Thanks, Mom.
Okay, what happened in our story?
Whoever she is was flying off the snowboard.
Yes, and who was she going with? Look at your picture. What do you... So she actually had kind of trouble with the comprehension, which isn't surprising because we were working super hard with the decoding. But this passage in and of itself was not intellectually too challenging for her if I had read it aloud to her. So that's one way in which I feel less burden on pushing their comprehension when they're at this stage. If I read it to her, she's fine. I can ask her to tell me what it means, and maybe we can help work on that. But I don't put a lot of my time on the comprehension at this stage because other than to check and make sure she comprehends it and to coach her through it if she misses things. But mainly we're putting all that time into eyes on print. So they are decoding, they're building their high frequency sight word knowledge. So what do you think? Do you see how that might give you a little, I mean, I'm not saying this is a whole solution to all of the guided reading challenges, but this is a partial what's the word? Antidote. That's what I was looking for. Antidote to reducing the overwhelm. If we do word work and then transfer it directly into real reading and match that in alignment, it actually, number one, it makes it easier for us to select text instead of picking based on level, like would these kids be on level E or level G and just finding a level E or G book. We actually pick books based on the decoding level, and then all week we work on that sound and then we move them up to the next level the next week. Let me show you how this works with the reading simplified approach. We use something that I call the streamlined pathway. See if I can bring that up for you. So you can see here, like step 2 was what you saw tonight. the O sound for guide for sorted, and then O sound text. And we do that all week. It's not too hard for me as a teacher to know what we're going to do with that group. And then the next week they go into the same routine, but it's the E sound at this third level, the E sound in all of its spellings. And the week after that, they get into the A sound in all of their spellings. And they are learning all those spellings, maybe not 100% mastery, but they're gaining more and more, especially with review, because we do such an intense focus on it for a week. We do multiple O sound passages all week, and then we reread them. And I really like what Lisa said about how she was getting her kids to get that rereading exposure. She's making sure that they decode with her support, probably in guided reading, but then after they've done it and maybe she's modeled it, they go and they reread it multiple times so that the text, and particularly those high frequency words, they become automatic. She says she challenged her kids to see how many other kids they could read it to while I worked with another group. That's great because the challenge is always, of course, exciting for kids. So what does Diane have to say about this? Diane, remember, is tutoring in North Carolina. She says she has a first grade struggling student. She just started the O sound. After word work, sorting, and writing, she was able to read a snow day. Hey, so Diane's using Read Simplify. That's awesome. She was so proud, and her mom was surprised. By using decodable text, she was successful, and she reinforced this O sound words. Exactly. And then after a short while, sometimes as little as 12 weeks, when you get to the top of this streamlined pathway, then the kids have this strong sound symbol decoding base, and they can read books like Henry and Mudge or Hey Fly Guy. They can read maybe early chapter books, Magic Tree House. They can read Frog and Toad. Whatever books that you have that are more authentic because they have this strong sound symbol foundation. So if you feel like if you gave your kids those texts, they wouldn't be able to attack it, and you don't know what word work activities would be as effective as some of these that we talked about, I'm going to be presenting on the 3 most important activities that make all the difference for kids who are using, whose teachers are using the Reading Simplified approach. I'm doing that on Thursday. So let me see if I can figure out how to put that into the comments. If you haven't joined this workshop before, 3 activities a day to keep reading difficulties away, I encourage you to check it out because these 3 activities really create that strong foundation, and then it makes it easier for me to plan my lessons, and I can align that word work easily with particular decodable text. They move along rapidly, and then we have more time in the year for more authentic text. So I'm going to pop in, if you haven't seen that workshop before, I'm going to pop it in here now, and you can join. It's coming up. If you can't join it live, register anyway so you can get the replay. But I also, let me just check to see if I got the right address. I think so. So I also promised you guys some free lesson plans, and I'm trying something new. If you type the word plans, it might work that you get a month of free lesson plans in your Facebook Messenger account. But I'm not sure it's all going to work. And if it doesn't work, we will find an old-fashioned way of getting it to you. But here is that link for the 3 activities a day to keep reading difficulties away workshop, so that you see what word work is easier to do and which ones are more powerful. And then it'll be easier for you to align that to decodable text. Now, if you've come here and I sound like I'm off the wall with the decodable text and it's totally different from your experience, I know it's not mainstream. You are often given the instruction to pick level text where there's very little association with the word work that you're doing. Talk about it here in this chat, or Facebook message me, or email me, or come to this workshop and see if what I'm saying is true. So you guys who are typing plans, is there anything coming to you in your Facebook Messenger? Let me know. Joan asks, are the Streamlined Pathway materials for sale? Great question. So the main way that I get these ideas out there are through the blog readingsimplified.com. And you can get a lot of resources there for free if you go to Start Here. So there's a button, it's kind of in the middle of readingsimplified.com, and you can get some free resources there. I also provide much more resources and support and video trainings in a membership called the Reading Simplified Academy. And also you'll find a button for that in the middle of the page at readingsimplified.com. And also, if Joan, if you go to that workshop, we'll have a special offer, because right now general enrollment is closed, but those folks who are at that workshop will be given an opportunity to join this weekend. Oh, great. Rachel, you are, whoops, didn't mean to do that. I'm going to your page, Rachel, instead of just bringing your picture up here. What I meant to do, Rachel, is tell you thank you for, yeah, there, you received the link. Great. I appreciate that. So, what else should we talk about guided reading? Some of you are, I know that you've been doing these types of things and you're on board. Maybe you have questions about how to take to the next level, or you have a struggling student. Some of you, I might have come out of at you from left field, and it may not even fit together what I was saying. So let me know so I can try to meet halfway. Oh, Joan, you're welcome, of course. Thank you for saying that. Oh, Joan says she would love the plans, but do not have Messenger. Okay. So let's see. Joan, can you email me? Marnie@readingsimplified.com. We'll get you those. Yay, Lisa. I'm pulling you up again. Here we go. Let's see if I can drag this in. Lisa says, yay, she can rejoin. Sweet. I love it. Okay, any other thoughts about guided reading? I'm checking back through the comments. Deb, thank you for telling me too that it came through. That was so helpful. So if you think these ideas could be helpful for some of your colleagues, go ahead and tag them or share this out or invite them to the workshop. The 3 activities that I'm going to teach are really the best of my experience based on research and 20 years of teaching and tutoring and working with teachers. And we really do use about 80% of the instructional time for just 3 activities, and that's what moves the needles for any beginning reader or struggling reader. In fact, in that workshop, I'm going to show how a 5-year-old and a 15-year-old, both who are struggling, but at different levels, obviously, use the same 3 activities to get to actually well above grade level. And so that's one way in which we here at Reading Simplified, we reduce the burden on planning for guided reading. We don't have a ton of activities. We just have 3 core word work activities, and we don't have a ton of things in our lesson plan. It's mostly just rereading, word work, and guided reading. And we align the word work with the guided reading until kids have the strong sound symbol foundation, and it doesn't take too long for them to get that strong sound symbol foundation. So then we can move into all the fun books that we want to share with our children, like Henry and Mudge and Well Beyond, so that we can develop their comprehension skills in a richer way. But to kind of bring it back in, when the kids are at this beginning level, whether it's because they're kindergartners and they're just there beginning, or they're struggling and they're behind and they need that strong sound symbol foundation, don't let all the overwhelming things about literacy kind of make you feel guilty like you have to do it all. Really, their first and by far their most important need is to develop sound symbol processing. When they develop that, everything else comes much more naturally. Fluency is built upon a foundation of strong sound symbol processing, and then word recognition through practice, and rereading, and then fluency, and then broader and broader comprehension strategies. And so let's see what else you guys are saying. Thank you, Lisa. And she says, and it works. I appreciate that. Lisa is one of our oldest members, so I know that she is an excellent source because she's tried it for a long time. And Deb asks, I have levels I and J. Would you supplant the activity you showed us instead of decodables or LLI books? Yes. If the kids aren't above grade level in their sound symbol decoding, then make sure that they're getting a lot of dose on word work like the Sort It, and then they're reading texts that focus on that particular sound. It doesn't have to be the Reading Simplified Academy text. It could be any book that you find that has an emphasis on that target sound. Ideally, a text that targets on the sound with multiple spellings. So a lot of books that are decodable will just have like OA and OA over and over again. And if you can find a text that mixes OA and OW and O, those are my favorite. That will be the best learning for the child because their brain can't turn off. It has to kind of be alert the whole time. When your brain's alert, you're more likely to learn. So those level I and J books, Deb, they may still be appropriate as a complement, but not as the sole source because there's just no opportunity for transfer. It'd be like practicing your twos with some activities, manipulative games when you're learning 2 times 2 and 2 times 3 and 2 times 4, and then sending kids home with a worksheet that was, measuring boxes and shapes with rulers and centimeters. I mean, that might be noteworthy and valuable, but how is it going to get them the practice they need to memorize their twos? So really, that's kind of what we've been doing in reading, and it creates an inefficiency and just a heavy burden because really, what is the difference between this iBook and that iBook in terms of what the kid needs? It's hard to determine, but it's pretty easy to say, oh, my kids need, they need some O sound. See if I can pull it up here. They need some O sound word knowledge, and I'm going to give them an O sound text to make it stick. So hopefully that helps. Good question, Deb. Joanne says it's getting colleagues to be patient about children moving up the levels while you show your methods work. Yes, that makes sense. This is, oops, there I did it again. Sorry. Let's drag. Not good at dragging your comments in here. So yeah, Joanne says, these techniques do take a little time because initially you're not really focused on memorizing high frequency sight words, right? You're building a foundation, and sometimes that foundation the first couple of weeks it may be slower than if kids are really super fast at memorizing high frequency sight words. But in the long run, these kids are going to be really flying high. And the students, let's see, pull it in there again. What else does Joanne say? The students will be better off and not get stuck. Exactly. That's what's so classic in my experience as a reading tutor. When kids learn high frequency words without a sound symbol foundation, they hit a wall, sometimes second grade, third grade, fourth grade. It depends on the capacity of their visual memory, but almost invariably they do hit a wall, and then they can't attack unknown words. They can't attack all those multi-syllable words, and the system starts to slow down, and they're not fluent. And then what do we do in the schools? Well, we start to push fluency. But really, that's not the problem. That's the outcome of the underlying problem, which is that they didn't actually get the strong symbol sound foundation. So that's a little bonus point. Thank you guys for being here. If hopefully you got the plans. If you didn't, email me at marnie@readsimplified.com. Sign up for the workshop. If you haven't heard about these activities, it's right there. And I look forward to being with you next Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. We come in every week, if we can, to share professional learning about how to make reading more streamlined and have all of our students accelerate. So thanks for being here, you guys. Good night.